chain, please.
But you don't.
Just... Sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last time I did the same thing, you were the guardian.
Welcome to the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield. We offer you independent voices and underreported stories about topics you won't hear anywhere else. Join us as we delve into the deeper issues behind the news stories of the day on the MTC Report.
Don't go anywhere. The MTC Report with Mark Taylor-Canfield continues next.
Another election, another convention, another media intervention, another reason, another season to vote for Bernie.
It's not one thing. This is a pattern of divisiveness, of a very dark and in many ways dangerous vision of our country where he incites violence.
Hey, this is Mark Taylor-Canfield for the MTC Report. I'm a journalist and musician in Seattle. I've written at the Huffington Post. I'm contributing editor for Democracy Watch News, a regular guest on the Jeff Santos Show, broadcasting nationally from Boston on the Revolution Radio Network. And today I have an article at Daily Kos called Sheriff in Gianforte Case Discloses Financial Contribution to Candidate's Campaign. So that's the issue behind the story here. Now, Republican candidate for U.S. Congress in Montana, Greg Gianforte, was charged with misdemeanor assault after he attacked The Guardian's reporter, Ben Jacobs. And this is the resulting story.
You took my favorite jacket, then you chased my friends away, and now I'm here all alone, and I'm alone, I guess I'll stay. Well, why'd you have to cheat me out of everything I own? You took my record collection and you kicked me out my home. So way down the river.
The Republican candidate for U.S. Congress is running in a very important and very close special election in Montana. And although 250,000 votes have already been mailed in, this incident could spell disaster for the Gianforte campaign. Gianforte's alleged attack on The Guardian's Ben Jacobs on the eve of this election couldn't have come at a worse time for the GOP. One of the questions surrounding the investigation of this incident was addressed by Sheriff Brian Gutkin. He felt compelled to answer a question after the press conference in Bozeman, Montana, on the day that Gianforte was charged. On the official Gallatin County Sheriff's website, he states, "Earlier this evening, I conducted a press conference about an incident that occurred at Greg Gianforte's campaign headquarters. After the press conference, it was brought to my attention that people were commenting on a contribution that I made to the Gianforte campaign. Gallatin County Sheriff Brian Gutkin in Montana has admitted that he contributed to Greg Gianforte's campaign for U.S. Congress. So there are many questions lingering today in the wake of the assault charges filed by the Gallatin County Sheriff against U.S. congressional candidate Greg Gianforte. I maintain that if the perpetrator had been a homeless black man, he would have been pursued and arrested immediately. Of that, there's no doubt. But instead of an imminent pursuit, the Sheriff's Department deputies took their time, and Gutkin waited to make a decision on whether to arrest Greg Gianforte. Now, was his political position a consideration in that decision? I'll let you decide. A special election was called when Ryan Zinke had vacated his seat. The race has attracted national attention, and $17 million has been spent.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you
Okay,
have the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Jesus.
I did contribute $250 on March 23, 2017. This contribution has nothing to do with our investigation, which is now complete. Well, since the investigation is now complete, according to his own official statement, we can therefore conclude that Sheriff Gutkin did not consider it an offense that Gianforte left the scene of a crime after the police had responded. Did he disqualify himself from gaining a seat in the U.S. Congress? Or will another political figure using strong-arm tactics get themselves elected to a federal government position? Ben Jacobs claimed that he was injured and sought medical assistance, yet Gutkin claims that the attack did not rise to the level of a felony offense. That's Sheriff Brian Gutkin of Gallatin County, Montana. But there was no arrest. The GOP candidate for Congress was simply issued a, quote, citation, unquote, as in the case of a traffic fine. So let's be clear here. The difference between felony and misdemeanor assault charges is huge. Just ask anyone who's faced the 3 strikes and you're out policy or who's tried to apply for employment. Greg Gianforte was actually taken to task by the editorial board of the Missoulian newspaper earlier on April 27th, after the candidate made a statement inferring that he was opposed to the U.S. press. The Missoulian headline read, "We're not the enemy." Reporter Ben Jacobs recounts the incident with Gianforte in a video at my Daily Kos article. Jacobs tweeted that his glasses were broken by Gianforte's assault. So why is he being charged only with a misdemeanor rather than a felony assault charge? And why wasn't Greg Gianforte immediately arrested? Greg Gianforte's campaign released this official statement on the alleged assault. Tonight, as Greg was giving a separate interview in a private office, the Guardian's Ben Jacobs entered the office without permission, aggressively shoved a recorder in Greg's face, and began asking, quote, badgering, unquote, questions. Jacobs was asked to leave. After asking Jacobs to lower the recorder, Jacobs declined. Greg then attempted to grab the phone that was pushed in his face, and Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist, spun away from Greg, pushing them both to the ground. It's unfortunate that this aggressive behavior from a liberal journalist created a scene at our campaign volunteer barbecue. And that is a statement by Shane Scanlon, a spokesperson for the Greg for Montana campaign, his campaign for U.S. Congress. By the way, Gianforte really did not have to make this a political issue. The fact that he accused the journalist of being a, quote, liberal is just fanning the flames of this controversy and this fire, folks. At the very least, the treatment of political candidates and campaign officials has been handled with kid gloves in several cases where Republicans have allegedly assaulted journalists. Gianforte is completely unapologetic about what happened. He claims the physical contact was initiated by Ben Jacobs, the reporter from The Guardian. Press freedom is very important to any democratic republic. So Greg Gianforte's lawyers can attempt to claim self-defense in order to avoid a sentence, but they'll have to prove that Jacobs made aggressive physical contact with the candidate. And the success of that defense will depend upon the stories of the 4 witnesses and the testimony of the alleged victim, Ben Jacobs. So denying the assault will be extremely difficult since 3 Fox News employees have already made public statements. Alicia Acuna, field producer Faith Mangan, and photographer Keith Rayleigh. So here's Acuna's written statement. Gianforte grabbed Jacobs by the neck with both hands and slammed him into the ground behind him. Faith, Keith, and I watched in disbelief as Gianforte then began punching the man as he moved on top of the reporter and began yelling something to the effect of, "I am sick and tired of this." Faith, Keith, and I watched in disbelief as Gianforte then began punching the man as he moved on top of the reporter and began yelling something to the effect of, "I'm sick and tired of this." To be clear, at no point did any of us who witnessed this assault see Jacobs show any form of physical aggression toward Gianforte, who left the area after giving statements to local sheriff's deputies. So the Fox News crew have been very clear in their statements that they did not see any aggressive physical moves by Ben Jacobs.
This is the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield.
We can have a world-class healthcare system without waiting lines.
All of a sudden, I heard a giant crash and saw Ben's feet fly up in the air as he hit the floor. Levinson tweeted that she heard Gianforte shouting angrily. In reality, Gianforte faces up to 6 months in jail, but you know he would get the minimum and probably a suspended sentence, most likely. Because that's the way justice works in the U.S. when it comes to public figures, especially bad cops and politicians. So as I tweeted earlier today, a pattern emerges here of a lack of response on the part of law enforcement agencies when Republican political campaign managers and candidates assault reporters. Does anybody remember the case of Corey Lewandowski? Right? Donald Trump's campaign manager denied the incident ever happened, but eventually Lewandowski was charged by the Jupiter, Florida Police Department with simple battery. And that was because of an alleged assault by Lewandowski on Michelle Fields, a Breitbart reporter. So Donald Trump himself suggested that the reporter Michelle Fields had lied about the issue. And he even dismissed her bruises, saying, "How do we know they weren't there before?" So subsequently, Fields and 4 other employees resigned from Breitbart. She claimed that the website didn't support her rights as a journalist. Recently, Public News Service reporter Daniel Heyman was arrested at the West Virginia State Capitol while trying to ask questions of Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. Also recently, security guards pinned reporter John Donnelly against a wall after he tried to question FCC Chairman Michael O'Reilly. This was at the West Virginia State Capitol. While the West Virginia ACLU has called for the charges against the journalist to be dropped. Reporters Without Borders currently ranks the United States as 43rd in the world in terms of press freedom. This is in their World Press Freedom Index 2017, which was recently released. And if these incidents of assaults, harassment, and arrests of journalists continue, it's obvious that our ranking will continue to drop even further on their 2018 report. Reporters Without Borders, the Committee to Protect Journalists, and a project called #ProtectJournalists, a campaign, are lobbying the United Nations to appoint a special protector to oversee the rights of journalists around the world. And the Secretary General says he will focus on this issue. So Reporters Without Borders and the Committee to Protect Journalists are working right now on a way of getting emergency information to the Secretariat so that they can try to oversee the violation of the rights of journalists across the globe. And here, finally, is the statement by The Guardian's U.S. editor, Lee Glendinning. The Guardian is deeply appalled by how our reporter Ben Jacobs was treated in the course of doing his job as a journalist while reporting on the Montana special election. We are committed to holding power to account, and we stand by Ben Jacobs and our team of reporters for the questions they ask and the reporting that is produced. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield reporting for the MTC Report in Seattle. The fact that Sheriff Gutkin had to respond to this allegation publicly on the county's website shows just how sensitive of an issue his contributions could become. He's apparently claiming that his support of Gianforte's campaign for Congress did not affect the outcome of the county's investigation. But can we really be assured of that? He's obviously an enthusiastic supporter of the alleged assailant. That fact cannot be denied, which is why he acknowledged it on the Sheriff's Department website. In answer to a question regarding Gianforte's leaving the scene of the incident, whether it constituted fleeing the scene of a crime, Sheriff Gutkin answered, "That'll be a part of the investigation." And at my Daily Kos article, you can see the video of the press conference that was held in Bozeman, Montana.
I have talked to doctors who have told me that people walk in the door extremely sick. And doctors say, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago when you first felt your symptoms? And people said, I had no health insurance, or I had a high
This is the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield.
We can have a world-class healthcare system without waiting lines.
Donald is pushed on something which is obviously uncomfortable, like what these women are saying. He immediately goes to denying responsibility. And it's not just about women. He never apologizes or says he's sorry for anything.